Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video it is something different because I'll be talking about this Micro Four Thirds camera right here. It's the Panasonic Lumix GX1. Now this camera, I got it together with the 14mm f2.5 for roughly 170 euros, including shipping of course and everything, so it's really affordable, especially together with this lens. And you know, nowadays that you can actually find this camera body, usually even better deal with a lens, usually also a good quality lens, some sort of pancake or prime lenses, things like that. You can really get really nice images together with this camera, and that's one of the reasons why I got this camera. In this video I'll be talking about this camera and why I think it might still be worth picking up. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the Lumix GX1, this camera is ancient, it's been out for a while now. It's the first of the GX line, obviously. This camera is small and tiny though, and when it was first announced, even though it was on a budget category, I still find it really expensive for what it was, and comparing to the competition of the DSLR at the time that could have actually done a lot more in terms of photography and filmmaking. But this actually offered a interchangeable lens system in a compact camera size style. So yeah, it really sold to a lot of people in the same time with the actual size and the interchangeable lens system style. So yeah, so in this video I would like to talk about the ergonomic side, and then going into the operational side, positive, negative, image quality, a little bit of video and what I think about it. So in terms of the ergonomics and operational side of this camera, I think that for a small camera at the time, it's still a great camera to use. It's a very simple camera, and if you watch a lot of my videos on old cameras, I think it's a really good thing, and you'll know that I think it's a pretty good thing, that it's really simple to use and also very easy to use, very minimal. And also very just focus on, getting the shots, because it doesn't have a lot of features. Everything you need is pretty much at your fingertips, but it also comes with the con. Of course, if you're a little bit more of like a pro user, you will find that there isn't enough buttons for you or enough functions for you, and that's where the touch screen really comes in. But of course, at the time, Panasonic wasn't really horrible at making touch screen. This is the first generation of the GX line. Nowadays, or even back to the G7 or the G70 line, their touch screen got so much better, but with their first version of this, their touchscreen is really bad. And over time it proves itself to be even worse, because this is a really common problem with the Panasonic touchscreen from that time, and my camera is also plagued with that, which is I cannot use the touchscreen anymore. Now it's only recognizing this area, and even if I have touchscreen enabled, it will think that I'm tapping on this area when I'm not tapping on this area, and it's really stubborn. So I have to keep this disabled and just use other buttons or program other buttons to set into my other settings that I would otherwise can set with the actual screen conveniently. And this camera, despite being 170 euros when I got it and came with this lens, it also came with other accessories like the actual electronic viewfinder that actually works, but the screen saturation is a little bit too low to make it accurate, but it will still give you really nice bright and big viewfinder if you're in a really bright sunlight area and you can't see the screen, because the screen is also very weak, and that's another downside of this screen, that it's the first generation, it's very weak. You still can see your frame lines, but you will not be able to really judge your exposure. And even we're talking about exposure right now, even when you're indoor, when there's normal lighting and you can see your screen, your exposure isn't really that detailed either. Sometimes certain areas look a bit too faded or washed away in the highlights, but you can actually see it on the monitor, on the more modern monitor, when you bring the image up to the computer. So do keep that in mind when you're getting into this. But obviously this happens with a lot of the older cameras as well, not only from Panasonic, but also with my Nikon, my older Canon as well. So it really is an old technology problem and not just this particular camera. I really like the fact that I actually give you proper hot shoe, because a lot of the more modern like entry-level interchangeable lens system, they don't give you hot shoe at the modern interchangeable entry-level price camera. So yeah, otherwise everything is very simple, and back to the simple part, it actually allows you to focus more on the shot rather than the technical part. So you can actually just, you know, focus on the moment, on the meaning of the shot you're getting, on the, you know, conceptualization part that you want to do, rather than thinking about like what you can really do technicality wise with the camera, if you want this to look like this or look like that, or like special effects. So it's really good that they really keep it simple, and it's really good especially for beginners, I find, or people who just want to just get a grab and go camera, because of its simplicity and just, you know, focus on the shot more and the conceptualization, as I mentioned, and the moments, of course. And talking about the moments, the autofocusing system on this camera is not the best in the world, but I've seen worse from more modern Panasonic cameras. Obviously, a lot of cameras will be able to beat this camera in terms of low light autofocusing system, but in terms of like perfect daylight, perfect lighting condition even, this camera will actually, you know, be more accurate than some of the more faster autofocusing cameras from Panasonic. So as the former G7 user as well, I would say that even though this is much slower than the G7, it is much more accurate, because I think by the time the G7 was launched, it was trying to be more fast than more accurate. And this had a normal AF system that tries to be more accurate and confirms if everything is more accurate. So yeah. Another thing that plagued a lot of Panasonic cameras, even my GH3 has this problem, is this back dial, is that it's not sensitive anymore. So when you're buying to this like older Panasonic cameras, please do ask the seller, because a lot of times they will not either not know or actually not inform you about it, about the dial, of how sensitive it is. So now this one is really not sensitive. It still works if I flip it really quickly, but if I flip it slowly, sometimes when I want to increase the value of maybe aperture or shutter, it actually decreases the value of it. So that's how unsensitive it is and how weird it really is as well. So yeah, there's that. I think that's about it with the, oh yeah, the ergonomics of this camera is really nice to hold. It's like a normal, nice, compact camera to hold. And being an expensive, entry-level, interchangeable DSLR, mirrorless camera at the time, it also means that it doesn't feel plasticky, so that's where the good bit is. The battery life is not reliable at this stage anymore, even if you get a newer battery. I think it's really just about the system itself. I have, however, updated to the latest firmware, and also the latest firmware on the actual lenses themselves as well. So yeah, the autofocusing system seems to be improved a little bit since I first got it, but it was only so much that they could do, and they really stopped updating this camera for the past few years now. So yeah, there is that. But it's still a nice, in my opinion, classic feeling kind of camera, and it's also just really nice to hold and nice to just take pictures, and a lot of people will not mind you because it still looked like a normal compact camera, especially when you have it with this lens that is also decently bright aperture at f2.5. So yeah, there's that. There is a hidden flash here that you can just use it to reflect, because it moves a little bit, and yeah, it's just really nice like this. So you can just bounce the flash onto the ceiling or something if you're into that, or just get an external flash and just have it really big on here. It's really up to you. Anyway, Oh yeah, one last thing about the operational side of things is the menu system. Having a camera with a really small set of features means that you also have a really nice, easy to use, simplified menu system. I was never really a fan of Panasonic's menu system because I think it's not that organized as compared to like Pentax, Nikon, Canon. So yeah, those are definitely more organized, but being this camera that is so simple means that you can get to your menu settings very quickly. You know where a lot of things are with just common sense, and it's just a really nice and fun camera to use. I love cameras that you don't need to always go into the menu to like find it through bunch of other sub menus just to change certain simple things, which more modern Panasonic cameras tend to really have, and it's getting more into like annoying Sony menus. So yeah, there's that. So this is really nice, fast and fun camera to use and operate as a whole package. So yeah, there's that. And now into the image quality. The image quality, obviously when you're getting to this kind of camera, you're not going to be expecting the most dynamic range, the most like the best color depth, the best color reproduction, but it will get really nice images taken with this particular camera. Of course, even in a normal cloudy day, you can actually see overexposed clouds, which is something I haven't seen in a long time. I think since the iPhone 3 GS maybe. So just that this is a little bit clearer, but you can shoot in RAW, and I usually shoot in RAW because it maintains more detail, and of course the file size is not that big anyway. So you know, sometimes it's kind of funny thinking about like compact cameras that shoot RAW, but you know, in this type of technology for nowadays, you kind of need RAW as well. But the color of the RAW files and also the JPEG files is very nice. I don't usually say that about Panasonic, but when you're buying into the old cameras, there is something about the older cameras that they produce somewhat more vintage digital look. If you're into that, then it's also really nice. It's also with not only with Panasonic but also with Canon, Fujifilm, Nikon, you know, Nikon with their older CCD sensors. It's really nice. And also I would admit that my X-T1 produces way better looking images than my X-T3 that's filming me right now. And the X-T1 is like what, under 200 euros, and my X-T3 is almost 1,000 euros. Depending on what you can get around 500 euros secondhand, of course, but brand new is still around 1,000 euros. So you know, there's a really huge price difference, but obviously something like the X-T3 will have more dynamic range and color information and image detail in general compared to the file of the X-T1. Just like this. This doesn't have the most detail in the world out of the Micro Four Thirds range, and it doesn't have the best color science nor the best color depth, reproduction, things like that, but the color is really nice and it gives you somewhat of a vintage feel as well versus the more modern Panasonic cameras that doesn't really have a pleasing color science at all compared to the competition. But that is also very subjective in the same time. But I would still recommend trying this out, and you might actually like the color of the GX1. So that's pretty much the downside and the positive side about the image quality as a whole on this camera. Yes, it's not as detailed. Yes, the dynamic range is not really there, but the positive thing is the look and feel of the image is like, there is character to it. There is the feel to it that I cannot really explain, but it's really nice and pleasant to use, and for like you get this weird feeling in relation with like using a vintage camera when it is still a digital camera. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Talking about image quality, now let's go into the video quality side of things. The video in this thing is not really worth talking about. There's a lot of aliasing, moire, there's just everything is also automatic. Well, most of the things are automatic as far as I can really see. If there's some sort of full manual settings that I don't know of, please let me know, because I would love to shoot a lot of things in manual with this camera, but as of what I can really see natively, it actually tries to automate a lot of system. So yeah, but will you be able to use it? I think so, if you're into that sort of thing and just want to leave the camera to do a lot of the video taking, but I think at this point your smartphone might be able to take better video quality than this camera. That's just what I think, but also depends on the smartphones that you have. If you're using iPhone, then yes, definitely it will have more dynamic range, better autofocusing system, better detail, better sharpening than this particular camera, because the sharpening from this camera is way too digitally sharpened. So yeah, there's that. It's very short, but so what I think about this camera, I think that I still recommend this camera if you're looking to getting into like a simple, cheap, interchangeable lens system, but obviously specifically Micro Four Thirds as well, because you know, brands like Canon and Sony, they have their interchangeable lens system, entry level as well, that's been out for a while, that nowadays you can also get at around similar price. But what sets them apart from this camera is that the lenses for this system is tiny. If you're into tiny lens system, you know, this is even smaller than the 22mm Pancake from Canon. Obviously, that lens will be able to deliver you better bokeh, better out of focusing background, also better in low light, sharper, better contrast than this lens. But when you're buying to this, you're not really caring about the best contrast, the best at everything. And you're really talking about the size and the actual value that you're getting. And for 170 euros with the EVF, well, obviously some people will have more luck than me and buy cheaper, because Netherlands is quite frankly very expensive. Then they will get better deals than me, or some people living in a more expensive country may also get slightly worse deal, but they will still find some sort of value pack, like better other lenses that would come with the camera, for example. So yeah, and if you're really looking to like getting a form factor of a compact camera size, then you know, this is still a nice camera to really go for. People don't really take this camera seriously. So yeah, and of course you get the benefit of changing lenses. So yeah, another positive is that if you lose this camera or somehow break, you know, a little bit over 100 euros, it's not really too much to really be sad about. You can always replace it, versus something like if you were to buy like a G9, GH5, XT3, what have you. If you lose or break those cameras, then you're gonna be sad for a longer period of time than, you know, breaking or losing this kind of camera. It also makes it a nice backup camera if you just want to go out and not really care about photography that much and just snap, snap, snap. Or if you're just going to somewhere where you think that bringing an expensive camera might be more dangerous and you could get things stolen or attract more attention, again, this camera is great. Or if you're starting photography, this camera is also great. Just make sure that you get a version that has properly working everything, like touchscreen and also dials, so that it will last longer with you. And being a beginner, you don't need to be intimidated by the size of this camera, because I know a lot of people starting out with with photography, they feel a little bit weird carrying a camera all the time around in their, like on their neck, or just having it all the time in their bag. They just feel like tourists for some reason. So yeah, there is that. But I still do highly recommend this camera, unless if you have other preference, like if you want the best image quality or the best dynamic range or the best detail camera, things like that, then this camera is not for you. This is just to have fun with, to learn with, to carry to places with, and if you lose it or break it, you can still replace it, you know? So yeah, there's that. I hope this video was a little bit helpful at least. If you need a free photography guidebook, I have it on my website absolutely for free. The link is down in the description below, and it's absolutely for free. You don't need to send me your email address, nothing, just click and download. Thank you very much for watching. If you have something to add, please leave it down in the description below. Sorry, leave it down in the comment section below. Have a nice time, stay safe, and have fun shooting. Bye.